Hello and welcome to the Driving Maul show here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Hi, I'm Paul and I'll be your host this evening. And yes, injured props, or are they injured? We'll have to wait and see about that. But that is definitely the topic for conversation tonight. Not only have we got Andrew Porter getting himself injured, but Offa is also looks like he's going to be out. Did we have a injured prop in gone blank? Oh, Paul, you can do this. You can do this. You can do this. Bristol versus Leicester. The game. We'll also have a chat. Obviously, that's some club rugby with some centennial celebrations up in Northland. We've also had the winter honours list and a rise Sir Buck. As also in Lions chat, we've got the Springboks squad and also Nay Milner Scudder turning out for East Coast in the well, actually not in the Heartland Championship. Heartland Championship hasn't started yet, has it, Stephen?
No, it isn't. Paul, I've already got through that. Very good. You go ahead and drink your, have a sip on your beer there, and I'll tell you again what a privilege and a pleasure it is once again to be on the TDM.
And if you're wondering why we're late, folks, it's because Stephen was late turning up. I was like, oh no, I'm going to be all alone. But no, he is here, thankfully, which is good to see. I'm used to him turning up in the nick of time. So, yes, it's nothing unusual there. Just so you all know, folks, I'm on the old Boundary Road Brewery beer here. So that's my tipple for the evening. Stephen, you on the Waters or the Coke or the Powerade? What's your...
No, on water.
Water, there we go. Not a Gatorade, he wouldn't touch the stuff, horrible stuff, Gatorade, but Powerade, he loves it. Where shall we start this evening? And let's I guess in the news there looks like Offa is going to miss the last game of the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman season through injury. Real shame. He's been in some good form, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has been in reasonable form. I must admit, I don't know if he's played a lot of minutes this year. You know, from what I can recall, usually the two starting props of sort of, I know Carl Tunukiafi is always started. We've seen James Lay obviously there as well, and I'm just trying to think who normally starts with him. You know, I'll tell you what, maybe I'm getting a little bit twisted here. Maybe he does actually start with. We normally see Nepo Leilala come on in the second half, don't we? The only reason I can remember that because I can remember Nepo giving away probably one of the dumbest penalties I've ever seen. He was so offside. Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave that at that.
I think that I think they have been spinning it around and rotating it quite rightly. If you've got 4 All Blacks props, you do give it a bit of rotation. You don't want to overplay any of them. So, in fact, if you want to be an All Blacks prop, Blues is probably one of the best places, to be because of that. So you don't have to play too many minutes. But yep. Talking of injuries, Josh Lord got a boot in the face at the weekend, and his eye really closed up. Listening in on the press conference, Neil Barnes says that that they don't think anything is broken there or any serious injuries, but they're still waiting for the swelling to go down, and he'll go through the HIA return to play protocols. Now, personally, a young guy like that, I would like to see him automatically miss the next week, personally. But I do understand the what's the word I'm looking for? The issues that the Chiefs have at the moment, or have had all season, pretty much actually, at lock. So I imagine that he will be brought straight back in. But personally, I think he should have been given a rest. But that's just my point of view.
Yeah, no, let's not go along with it. He's only a young player at the end of the day, and probably not to mention, I think the Chiefs they're probably more of an outsider to probably make the finals. They would need some seriously twisted results go their way, and we're sort of talking about maybe at least 2 of the teams in front of the Bluesing. I don't think it's going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. There was talk during the chat about whether Anton Brown would be rested for the final game of the season. So that So we'll have to wait and see. Nocturnal Right says the head injury looked very nasty, made me wonder about a fracture. Yes, I say, look, still waiting for all of the swelling to go down, so that they might still discover that. But at this point, thankfully, it looks like hopefully he hasn't done anything more too serious on that one. But I say, does have to do the return to play protocols in there. Talking of injuries, then, and Andrew Porter is out of the British and Irish Lions tour to South Africa, unfortunately through injury, which is a real shame for him. This has brought Carl Sinclair into the squad, though. So look, I don't think it's a massive loss to the British and Irish Lions. They've got a very able replacement there, someone that I think a lot of people had in there starting at 23, maybe not starting 15, but starting 23 for the Lions. So we're very surprised he didn't get called up in the first place. So yeah, Carl Sinclair in there, and as Warren Gatland says, he's been sticking two fingers up at Warren Gatland with his style of play since then. So good on him to get the call up, but a shame for Andrew Porter.
Yeah, no, obviously there was a lot of media in and around his non-selection, and he was very emotional about it. But I think somewhere along the lines, I think we may have said on one of our previous shows that, gee, you're only an injury away from getting back in the team. And hey, listen, if there were 2 or 3 injuries in the same position and he wasn't getting picked, well, then I would imagine him and the coach have got an issue. But listen, the fact that he was the first cab off the rink just shows you probably how close he was to the original team.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a few more injuries along the way as well before we go. I mean, whilst the sort of Irish and Welsh boys and Scottish boys are pretty much, they've got maybe a Rainbow Cup game or 2 left in them at most. Whereas the guys who are playing in England, they have got a couple of games left, plus also finals footy as well. So there is definitely room for a few injuries amongst those ones playing in England. I would expect most of the other ones to get through pretty unscathed into that. Talking about being a bit scathed, though, a couple of the South Africans are already in doubt here. RG Simon and Damien Delende, who both play for Munster, have been burnt in a fire pit accident. I mean, look, I understand the Lions want to win this the tour, but to injure 2 of them they're in Munster by burning them is perhaps a little bit beyond rugby values.
Yeah. That is just a bizarre story.
It is.
I'm just trying to picture to myself how you would explain that, maybe to a family member.
There aren't a lot of details around this one. CJ Stander and Mike Haley. I mean, obviously, I was joking, folks, about the Irish deliberately burning Springboks. But CJ Stander and Mike Haley, also received burns. Those 2 are expected to be back in training this week and available for the final Rainbow Cup game. Whereas Damien Delende and RG Simon will not be training and again are back to see the burn specialist again this week. So look, we wish them both a full recovery and hopefully the burns aren't too well. Hey, they're going to be of some sort of level to that. Let's say arms, legs, and face. It says. So let's just hope they are okay. No, I don't believe this is I do think this is it will be a proper fire pit rather than barbecue incident, considering the sort of size of Simon, and say he got substantial burns to legs, hands, and face. That is I think so. Hopefully they're both all right there. Yes. Nocturnal Right, braaiing with too much kerosene. That's I wouldn't braai with kerosene if I were you folks. not to be advised for your old sausages there, as it were. But there have been a number of interesting, I'll put it, selections in the Springboks selections. All but 3 players who were in the Rugby World Cup final are there. Unsurprisingly, just those that have retired from the game are missing. But two players who are included are Mornay Stein, who has and Franz Stein. Two old boys there in that one, turning back the clock. Mornay Stein not played for the Springboks for 5 years, Stephen, but in with a shout again against the Lions.
Yeah, it's a real surprise on the part of Mornay Stein. We know he's a very good goal kicker, but in terms of a running game, he's very limited unless he's done something amazing to turn that form around and that skill set around. I don't think so, but also with the selection of Franz Stein, that also tells me what sort of style of game they're going to be playing, which is a bit strange when you do see some of the games from South Africa. They've got some really great young outside backs running around. But if you think back to that World Cup final in 2019 against England, they just systematically ground them down. Just on the side, Peter Steph du Toit is his name in there.
Yep, Peter Steph du Toit is there. Yep, there's plenty of size in there, along with 5 players from Cell Sharks in there, including Jean-Luc Dupree and Dan Dupree, both named as loose forwards. So plenty of size in that one. Is Mornay, is he 40 yet? I don't think he's 40 yet, folks. No, but he is. Yes, in the latter half of his 30s. That's or heading that way. I think he's about 35, 36ish. But apparently, he has been one of the form players over in South Africa. Look, I think this probably shows that the Springboks haven't played since the Rugby World Cup last year. They have 2 warm-up games against Georgia before heading into the series with the Lions. There is a South Africa A game that I think will also be picked from the same squad of players as well. So it is an extended squad. Let's be honest, in this one, and maybe we'll see a few people who are in that one rather than the other one. Some of the, and also he has to have enough. So as Simon points out here, that top 14 and the Gallagher Premiership players, will they be available for all of the games on against Georgia, etc. I'm not quite sure if they'll have sort of got through quarantine and things like that in time. So maybe there is an opening for that. Not turn right, so they have a young, quick guy, Willemse. Willemse is named as a 15 in this squad, not as a 10. Interestingly, so he is in the squad there, or pretty, as I say, as an outside back. The fly halves are Elton Yanchis, Henri Pollard, and Mornay Stein in there for the fly halves. As I say, Willemse, along with players like Speckman, who is uncapped. Obviously, has been in the sevens side of things in there. So yes, there are a lot of interesting players, but I think probably the fact they haven't played any international rugby since the last Rugby World Cup shows you that I think he's gone for experience here in this one ahead of the Lions, which is obviously after the Rugby World Cup one of the sort of the biggest events around in this one.
Definitely going with players that they know in the squad. I was just looking through the number of caps in the backs, and there's some high caps within these teams. It's crazy to think that somebody like Cheslin Colby has actually only got 14 caps. I would have thought he had more than that. Where you've got the likes of Willie LaRue, who's playing for Toyota Verblitz with 61 caps. Even Mapimpi's quite an inexperienced player in the scheme of things. 14 points, 14 caps, 70 points. Boy, that's a lot of tries. That's a lot of tries already. I'm trying to do my maths as we talk, Paul. What's that? 14 tries already, and is that 14 tries and 11 caps? Does that correct? Sound correct?
14 tries from 14 caps, maybe.
Yeah.
So Mapimpi averages a try a game. He's obviously going very, very well there. You've got to say I think someone like Cheslin Colby has struggled for caps at some points because of his size, and really was only in the run up to the Rugby World Cup that he actually got to that he became a permanent fixture in the team in that one. So I think his size has counted against him. Obviously, we know how damaging he can be because he is 27. So as far as wingers go, that's getting on a bit, or coming towards the end of his career, as we've seen with players like Julian Savea, for example, for the All Blacks. We've got as we saw with the selection of the Lions squad, where they selected a lot of second rowers and quite a few second rowers who can play six, but no out-and-out sixers. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the All Blacks playing, the Lions playing three locks, essentially with players like Courtney Laws in that number 6 role to try and combat the Peter Steph Toy effect. Obviously, World Player of the Year there, including in that one. So wouldn't be surprised with that. Craig Crabstyle from YouTube, he's calling a drawn series already. Stephen, how are you calling it at the moment?
I don't know. Originally I thought the British and Irish Lions were a real chance. It's an intriguing series. It's basically intriguing. The one upside that the British Lions have got is they've just come out of a Six Nations championship. A lot of the players will know each game. There's a lot of sort of excitement, but there's still enough experience in that side. If Gatlin can pull them together in the same way that he did back in 2017, they're a real chance. I look at the South African team, there might be a real chance. I think it takes South African teams a while to start rolling. You think back to the Rugby World Cup. It really took them a while to get, to basically get moving, to get themselves back up to the level that they can. If the British and Irish Lions are any chance, and I say any chance, they have got to win that first test. And
that is always the thing, isn't it? Yes, is them winning that first test, as you say. Simon says, how many of the test matches are played at altitude? So I'll just quickly run through the schedule for this. The British and Irish Lions, before they leave, are playing Japan in Murrayfield. Then they go over and play the Lions, Sharks, Bulls up at altitude to start off with, before moving down to sea level at Cape Town to play South Africa A, the Stormers, and South Africa at sea level, and then going back up to Joburg for the final 2 tests. So 2 out of the 3 tests will be at altitude, but the Lions are arriving and going straight into altitude for their opening 3 games as well. Now, the other point here is there are just those 5 games in the run-up to, or actually, 6 if you include the Japan game. Whereas if you compare that to the tour to New Zealand, where they played all 5 Super Rugby franchises, plus the Maori All Blacks and the provincial team, so 7 games in the run-up. These tours are getting shorter and shorter, and for what is a select team that haven't played against each other, is going to be a problem for Warren Gatland. It's just getting enough game time with these players playing together. So for me, I think whilst the Springboks are a bit of an unknown quantity, and the fact they haven't played in well over a year, about a year and a half, they are the world champions for a good reason. They've got the majority, of that squad still together, and they have to go into this one as favourites. I would say leading into this one.
Would it be fair to say that maybe the British and Irish Lions also go into this maybe a little bit? They'll be a little bit fresher. Shall we say the usual situations? I know the Gallo Premiership, we'll get onto that shortly, is coming to a conclusion of sorts. Obviously, your top liners who will be involved in playoffs, etc., will will probably be a bit banged up. But in the main, has it got a when is the first game on the tour, Paul?
So they've got that 26th of June is the game against the British and Irish Lions. Game against Japan. And if you think that the Gallagher Premiership final is due to take place, as he quickly scrolls down and has a quick look to try and get it in time. And he doesn't get there quite in time. His words beat him to his scrolling. But the final should be on the 26th of June, so the same day as that Japan test. He's not going to have access to all his players ahead of that game, with the expectation that Exeter and Bristol will probably be in that final. So a number of players from both of those teams in the Lions squad. Thinking of Luke Cowan-Dickey is there. Carl Sinclair, obviously we've talked about. Johnny Hill, the lock. Sam Simmons, the number 8. And also Stuart Hogg, the fullback, are all so at least 4 players he's expected to be missing. So 4 or 5 players anyway, missing before that one. So we'll have to wait and see. Aaron says, yeah, what's the Lions' style of play will be interesting. Will they play Gatland ball against the Springboks? It is going to be very interesting, and I say that selection there of only 6 back rowers, and if you look at them, Jack Conan, Talupe Falatau, and Sam Simmons are considered 8s. Tom Curry, Justin Tipperick, Hamish Watson, all considered 7s. There are no recognised 6s in that there. So are they going to try and play 2 7s and lots of speed, or are they going to go with your Courtney Laws, Tyburn, Mauro Toji, all who can play in that 6 role, and then having 2 lumps like Alwyn Jones and say Johnny Hill or Ian Henderson in the row? We'll have to wait and see how important that will be. But yeah, I think we're going to see them try and go with a big 6. I know a lot of people are suggesting that actually they will go at more pace, but we'll have to wait and see. Will pre-existing combinations come into selection process? Craig Crabstyle says, yes, they will. And one of the things you noticed when the British and Irish Lions travelled down to New Zealand was that ahead of for the first, I think, 3 or 4 games, Warren Gatland chose his front rows as teams. He did, and he kept the same 3 players together, starting. So he had basically 3 sets of 3 of front rows that he rotated in the opening few games. And it wasn't really until I think the Maori All Blacks game where he actually changed the combination there in his front row forwards. So you will see combinations will be massively important. It's something that Warren Gatland takes very seriously, but not only on the pitch, but also off the pitch with the coaches that he selects. And that was one of the things about the coaches that he selected for the New Zealand tour. For this tour, he's had a couple of issues. First off, his attack coach that he's used for the last couple of years, for the last couple of tours, Rob Howley, he decided not to go with him because of his gambling issues that he had at the Rugby World Cup. And Warren Gatland said, look, he didn't want to spend the whole tour talking about that previous issue with Rob Howley. Now, there's no suggestions around that Rob Howley was fixing games for gambling. It was definitely an illness he had, but even so he isn't there. And Warren Gatland's got a new attack coach in Gregor Townsend to work with. He's worked with Robin McBride as forwards coach and Neil Jenkins as the kick coach, but he has got a new defence coach in Steve Tandy, who is currently the Scotland defence coach in there, who's Welsh. But so 2 new coaches in the coaching lineup for Warren Gatland to have to get used to working with as well. And I've just hit you with your drinking. Comment in the live chat there about Pat Lam. We'll be getting onto that one. Don't you worry, sir. So there is talk about the fact that he might also that Andy Farrell I think has made himself available after the Wales internationals, because the first Test match on this tour is on the 24th of July. Now, and I'll just bring up the mid-year tests. But I think that means that Andy Farrell's requirements with Ireland will mean that because they've said that he might be that they're making him now available for that, because they got a game on the 3rd, 4th of July. Sorry, the 3rd of July versus Japan. So I think they would be wrapped up if they got one on the 3rd of July, the 10th of July, and the 17th of July. They'll be wrapped up and finished the weekend before that first Test match. So there is talk of him flying out for the second half of the series. An interesting one there, Stephen. I mean, what does that mean then for Steve Tandy? Is Steve Tandy not being trusted as a defence coach if they're flying out a defence coach for the second half of the tour, or do you think it's? Do you think it wouldn't be disruptive in that way?
Oh, listen. The more I think the more intel you can actually have and experience you can have, the better. These tours only come around every
4 years
every 4 years, and to give yourself an opportunity, I think you just need to throw the kitchen sink.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting if Andy Farrell does go out there. One of the things that we saw, one of the things that Tor Gatlin is kind of known for is that he's not a big speech man. So he tends to not talk much on the actual day of the Test match. And Andy Farrell was used in the last Lions tour to New Zealand as the person who gave the inspirational speech just before the game. So he might be shipped in purely just to do speeches to the players, which would be an interesting role to have. Specialist speech coach or specialist enthusiasm coach for the British and Irish Lions there. So we might see him out in that role. It'll be interesting to see whether he does go or not. Come on then, I've avoided it long enough. What are your thoughts on Pat Lam and whether he does or doesn't whether he thinks a player is or isn't injured, and how he manipulated the ending of that Bristol versus Leicester?
Yeah, I suppose we should just start with a little bit of background, Paul, for anybody who hasn't seen this incident. And it happened towards the very end of the Bristol Leicester game. Now, Bristol were pretty much in control of that game for a good deal, but credit to Leicester, they came right back into the game towards the end, and had an opportunity right near the end to take the victory, and they had an attacking scrum close to the line, but one of the players for Bristol was carded, and that was for repeat infringements at the scrum. And of course, the official went over to Pat Lam, who had come down to the sideline, and Pat Lam said, "Listen, we haven't got any more props left because John R4, who left the field earlier, was injured." Excuse me. And the referee then basically said, "Well, okay, that's all right, but that means you'll have to finish out the game with only 13 players, because if you haven't got somebody to replace that prop, that's just the way it is." While this was all unfolding, the Leicester Tigers coach Steve Borthwick was also there as well, and of course he wasn't impressed at all, and he was also in the ear of the official. There was quite a lot said, and if you kind of looked in the background, you could see John R4 was looking very embarrassed about it all, and then before you know it, he heads out onto the field for that very last scrum. But
but before you go any further, a clip has come out that where you can hear what John R4 says just before he runs out onto the pitch. Now, someone clearly says thank you to him for actually going out to play, and he goes, "You won't be thanking me when I win the penalty," before he runs out onto the pitch. So a bit of fighting talk, a bit of smack talk there, literally as he's running out.
Yeah, he was obviously, agitated that that's not, and credit to him for standing behind his coach. He was obviously agitated with the line of questioning that was going on at that particular time, and if you can imagine, it was quite a tense moment. He goes out onto the field, and of course, he doesn't win a penalty per se, but he puts enough pressure on the loose head prop that the ball pops out the side into the hands of the Bristol halfback, who kicks it into touch, and then obviously John gets out of the scrum and decides he should get into the face of an opponent and just let him know, and it really just went from there and deteriorated. And before you know it, all 30 players were jumping in. Most of it looked handbags at 10 paces, but it wasn't a good look. The finish, that is.
Not a good. Okay, there's that part of things where, as you say, it's not a good look having players fighting at the end, or handbags at the end of the game isn't a good look for the game. What's an even worse look for the game, though, is head coaches gaming or playing around with the laws to try and cheat to win a game. A player either is injured or they're not, and Pat Lam there trying to suggest that one of his players is injured, who clearly wasn't, because he went on the pitch and did a very good job, is disgusting. Is wrong. Let's be honest, folks. It's not the first time we've seen this happen, and I'll run through those in a second. But look, we had a phone call and a chat about this before, Stephen, and you're not impressed with Pat Lam's behaviour.
No, not at all. Ethically, it's very poor. He's lied. He knows that the player wasn't injured, and he knew that his team were under the pump. And to me, it goes against the spirit. Call it gamesmanship, call it what you like, but it's not the first time we've actually seen this from coaches. And once again, at the end of the day, I'm a little bit old-fashioned, Paul. It's just a game, and listen, if you lose at the end of the day, that's the great thing about theatre. And Nocturnal Rights makes a good point. Gamesmanship over injury ruins the credibility of the game, and that's probably the root of my problem. And for me, it doesn't end there, because I thought John Afoa's behaviour was a little unbecoming of somebody who's a pretty well respected prop. I'm trying to get the words out, not just in the UK, but also New Zealand as well. And I think both of them, between them, have blotted their copybooks.
Yeah, Aaron says, maybe he was injured, but adrenaline could have kicked in. No, I think it's pretty clear that wasn't what happened. But head coaches have got previous form on this one. We've got a certain head coach of Australia, Rennie, when he was head coach at the Chiefs, for example. He pulled off a player and went to uncontested scrums when one of his players wasn't injured, and was sort of questioned about it by in the media conference afterwards. The media person who questioned him was then barred from the Chiefs the rest of the season. So that wasn't that wasn't very good. We've seen France do a similar thing, or actually trying to get a player back on against Wales, where the physio runs out and says that player's injured. They bang their head, and the player's looking around going, "What? Hey, I've not done anything." And then referee asks the player, "Are you injured?" And he goes, "I'm not sure." And and he says to the physio, "Are you sure? Are you telling me this person has got a concussion?" He said, "Yes." So that clearly was gamesmanship by France. We've also seen, talking of British Irish Lions versus Springboks, going back to the last tour, so 12 years ago now, we also saw John Smith was taken off during, I think it was the first test, but I could be wrong there. And the Springboks scrum started to go backwards at a rate of knots, and he was brought back on as one of for a player who was suddenly became injured again, but seemed to be absolutely fine. So there's at least three times, two of which were at international level, one at Super Rugby level, where this kind of thing has happened before. it's very, very difficult to become to officiate this one, because trying to say if someone is or isn't injured is very difficult, Stephen. And the referee's been basically putting in an impossible situation.
Oh, very, very much so. Once again, you're going on the word of the players. Just back to the Dave Rennie incident. I know it very well, because they did have a prop on the bench, and Rennie basically said that, this guy's not experienced enough to play on the tight head side. And yet the season before, this particular player had played for the Bay of Plenty Steamers and played on both sides of the scrum. So what happened in the season? He all of a sudden became a bad scrummager. These guys, when they get selected to play professional rugby or super rugby, they're usually selected because they have got a little bit of diversity. They can play on both sides of the scrum. And in this case, it was absolutely farcical. Oh, yes, I have got a prop, but guess what? He can't play on both sides. But wait a minute, Dave. He played both sides last year, and he used the excuse of the level of rugby being higher. Now, I get the whole situations where they basically protect young players coming into academies, etc., etc. I totally get that. If there's a young player, remember there was a time where they used to give younger players very limited minutes in the Mitre 10 Cup, as I recall, and that to me makes sense. It's just keeping an eye on the younger players moving forward. But to me, it just leaves a sour taste in the mouth.
Yeah, like Aaron says, name of the game is to win at all costs, and because dollars and careers come into it. That is where we're going, folks. Anybody who thinks, but to me, what that shows is this whole concept of rugby values that World Rugby likes to keep on harping on about on Twitter is really is farcical. It doesn't exist. It's a lie. It's a marketing lie that they use to try and up the game. Something that's part of the big chip on the shoulder that rugby has in Europe with football. Is obviously with football players obviously known for diving and simulating injuries, and how rugby players are so tough and play through blood and all this kind of stuff. It's all part of rugby values. Well, look, folks, that's gone out the window, and it has a number of years ago. I'm not sure if it ever really existed, to be honest. I think it's all rose-tinted glasses. But I think in every sport, you're supposed to, when you cross that white line, your opponents, when you come off the pitch, you shake hands and say, well done. It doesn't matter what the sport is, that's how you're supposed to behave. Rugby just seems to get up itself a little bit too much around that side of things.
Paul, it seems like it hasn't learned the lessons of the Harlequins Bloodgate issue many years ago, when was it once again, dare I say it, another New Zealander involved, Nick Evans, may have been involved in that particular incident. And
well, that was about getting Nick Evans back on, wasn't it? Yes. Where we're putting a fake blood capsule in a sock that went out there. That was obviously taking things to an extreme, and the wrong thing. Clearly, the wrong thing to do.
Well, if you think about that, it's a form of cheating. Is it any different than an Australian cricket player with a little bit of sandpaper trying to gain an advantage? That's trying to gain an advantage, isn't it?
It is. I'm not sure that. So I think Nick Williams, if I got the name right, was the winger who then had the doctor took out a scalpel in the changing rooms and cut his mouth. So that's perhaps taking things a little bit further than actually inflicting bodily harm on somebody. Now, not serious harm. Obviously, it's just a small nick. Nocturnal Rights says independent match doctors can make an assessment about injury. But again, if the player says, ouch, my back's hurting, his back's hurting, therefore he is injured. You can't really say whether he's lying or not. So look, there's only so far you can go. Aaron reckons that he can remember Canterbury pulling the same sort of thing against Auckland. I'm sure Auckland have never, ever stepped over the boundaries of any gamesmanship, Aaron. So don't worry about that. It's all Canterbury's fault.
Actually, that's Paul. That's actually quite a good one. Canterbury, I think maybe in a Shield challenge. Now, this sort of reverts almost back to the 80s or the 90s, and from what I recall, Canterbury came to Auckland with no hooker in their squad. So all of a sudden, when their scrum was getting munted, basically a flanker, Phil Cropper was the guy's name, who was an open side flanker, was basically the cover for the hooker. The typical land of the damned. Oh dear.
So this is a Ranfurly Shield challenge as well, back in 1990. Wow. So clearly, look, everyone else here, apart from obviously the immigrants here, doesn't remember this one, but everyone else does. John Buckman was apparently sent off.
That's right. John Buchan was sent off. So the Crusaders reckon they had no cover at hooker. Yeah. So they brought on
Canterbury.
Yeah.
Not. This is before the Crusaders days.
John
It's
Buchan
NPC.
John Buchan was interestingly, John Buchan originally played his rugby for the Grammar Club in Auckland, but transferred to Christchurch because there was a certain guy by the name of Fitzpatrick that was running around for Auckland at the time.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, never heard of him.
Can't be any good.
He only played 92 tests for the All Blacks. Glad you never heard of him. John Buchan ended up in Christchurch, and then of course in the Shield Challenge. Yeah, apparently from what I believe, this plan was well and truly concocted, Phil Copper came on as a hook, because you still, even though he got sent off, you still had to have a hooker in the front row. That's right, sent off for kicking Sean Fitzpatrick. There's a bit of an irony about that. Couldn't quite make the Auckland squad, but
they got sent off for kicking Fitzpatrick in the head on the ground. Well, there we go. As
nocturnal rights, you're showing your age.
as Simon Hughes says, I know a lot of fly half practice simulation. Rugby has a lot of rose tinted glasses at the moment. I think it has rose tinted glasses back then. To be honest, if we consider kicking in the head to be acceptable behaviour, I'm not sure where rugby's going. Aaron says it's the same in cricket. Obviously, calling cricket the gentleman's game, or it's just not cricket. Yes, clearly all of those sort of things. Very public schoolboy. Aristocratic England point of view, where we sort of fake values whilst we're more than happy to break them at any cost to win. But yes, that's not cricket. How dare you? But you're doing this, so I'm allowed to. I'm the aristocracy. We're allowed to cheat. You're the little people. You're not allowed to. So yes, there we go. Something about it being 100th and last game for the player as well for Canterbury, maybe. I don't know. I'm not right, obviously knowing a lot more about NPC history than I do. It seems that Sean Fitzpatrick used to wind up a lot of players. When Simon Hughes mentions here that Richard Lowe eye gouged him. So yes, Sean Fitzpatrick seems to have been on the receiving end. And if you're on the receiving end that much, there's no smoke without fire, as they say. So there we go. One other thing that I think we should cover off before we hit Club Rugby, though, Stephen. Sorry, is there one more thing you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, no. I was going to say, I know what you're going to talk about. Buck Shelford.
Absolutely. I'm going to hand over to you to talk about Sir Buck Shelford. Yes.
Yeah, Sir Buck Shelford, or exactly. What a prestigious honour for such a distinguished skipper of the All Blacks. In fact, I think he may have a record of being unbeaten as an All Black captain. That's actually as a captain, not so much a player, but listen, just well deserved, because Buck also does a lot of charity work as well. But he was the sort of player who played the game to the letter of the law. Very, very tough character, and I think we all know the story of what happened in Nantes. We've already talked about using a scalpel to cut a little bit of blood out, and we know about the incident in Nantes in France, where he played through a tremendous injury, shall we call it, in pain.
Well,
so
if you want to hear about that, we did do a the long talk with a friend of yours, Dean Kenny, the All Black All Black scrum half, who was at that game and in the changing rooms, and he saw what happened. So if you want to go back and watch and listen to that episode, yes, you can learn all about Buck Shelford's Nantes injury.
Yeah, don't be surprised if I'll put it on somebody to put up a sign somewhere in New Zealand with the bring back Sir Buck Simon Hughes. I was just about to say that because unfortunately this legend was dropped by I think it might have been Alex Wiley in 1990. He was dropped for one Zinzan Brook at the time, and of course. For years on end, we saw these signs around New Zealand stadiums, bring back Buck all the time, on saying that Zinzan Brook was one hell of a player. But, such was the respect that a lot of New Zealand rugby supporters had for this man. So, listen, wonderful achievement. And, we shouldn't forget, he is a World Cup winner as well at the very first Rugby World Cup in 1987. In New Zealand, played here in Auckland. Move across was a big part of North Harbour's sort of rise within the NPC back in the early days, and of course we shouldn't forget his part in basically bringing a little bit of culture back into the All Blacks. For anybody who's seen a lot of the old videos of the All Blacks doing the haka back in the old days, well, shivers, I think they would have looked at place doing a little bit of Morris dancing as well, Paul, because that's what that's how much time that they, those were from those eras, and that's how much time they actually put into it. But Buck put a lot of mana back into the haka and bring it back into All Black rugby. So just once again, just want to congratulate Wayne Buck Shelford on his award, and very well done to him and his lovely wife Jo as well.
I've just put in the in the live chat across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can obviously follow us. I have put in there the link to the Dean Kenny interview that we did probably about a year ago now, probably even longer actually. So that was when did we do that? Well, it was published on. I'm trying to see where the published date was, but 12th of May last year. So over a year ago now, we had that interview with Dean Kenny. So as I say, I have put that down on in the live chat, so folks to go listen to that. As Dr. Wright said, it was announced on the speakers at school when he was dropped as major news. Wow.
It was. It may have been the lead story on both news channels back in the day as well, Paul. That's how big it was at the time. I suppose the only real analogy I can use is probably it would be like the skipper of the English football team getting unceremoniously dumped, and Buck wasn't playing that badly, if you know what I mean, but he probably wasn't setting the world on fire either. But sometimes it's harder to get out of the All Blacks than to get in the All Blacks, and maybe that was a case of it.
Yeah. So anyway, congratulations to him on that one. Let's move on to, as we're nearly 50 minutes in, and you wanted to give us a quick update as to how the Northland centenary celebrations went. Yeah,
Paul. Just before I do, I'll just quickly get into some quick results from the other unions, and I'll start with the North Harbour competition. They had round 10 on the weekend. I'll start with Northcote at home. Mahurangi travelled to Northcote, but Northcote, very, very good side. And I thought they would bounce back after their loss to Takapuna last week. As for Takapuna, they travelled to East Coast Bays. Now, if you think back to the very first round of the season, they were far too good for East Coast Bays at Takapuna. I think they may have won by about 50 odd points to 17 or 50 to 19, something like that. Well, on Saturday, they only just scraped home, beating the hosts by 29 points to 24. So East Coast Bays have obviously gradually improved throughout the season. A big win to North Shore, 83-0 over Glenfield, who have struggled to put a side together this year. But, the fact is, we're starting to get deep into the season and they've still got a side. Another team that's going well this year is North Harbour Marist. They travelled to Silverdale and got the job done 18-14 in a close one. Now, these two are pretty much near neighbours. And in our final game, it was the Battle of West Auckland between Massey and Kumeu. And Massey travelled to Kumeu and got the job done 32 points to 29. Where does it leave us on the table? I'm sure Paul will bring that up very, very shortly and tell us how everybody is sitting.
Oh, sorry. So here's the table then. Sorry. And North Shore sits off the table on 41 points, 4 points clear of Takapuna, who are again another 4 points clear of Northcote. So those top two look quite a long way ahead of the rest. Admittedly, the gap between Takapuna and Northcote is on bonus points. And you can see that the fact they scored 405 points in their 10 games. So averaging 40 points a game for Takapuna. Some serious try scoring going on there. Marist then in fourth place on 30 points. And then Massey and Silverdale both on 27 points. So a bit of a fight out there, I think, for perhaps the third and fourth place in the playoffs. But those top two, you've got to say, those top two are looking like facing each other again in the final.
I'd have to agree with you, Paul. And I think the real big story in North Harbour Rugby is Marist. Marist, one of those teams that are they never quite make the playoffs. They always sit around that 7th or 8th pocket, just ahead of your Glenfields and Mahurangis. But obviously some good things happening at the Albany-based club, which is just situated across the road from Albany Stadium. Just driving down the highway a little bit over the Harbour Bridge, we head to the Auckland competition. Marist at home, too strong, and this was round 9 of Goodyear Tyres Auckland Club Rugby. Marist too strong for Waitemata at home by 34 points to 8. Now, I know Boa is at training tonight, and I'd say all their boys will have a big smile on their face, Paul, because they got the job done over Otahuhu Manukau Rovers 38, Otahuhu 17. Grammar Tech, after a tight contest a week ago against Ponsonby, well, boy, they had to work hard, but this time they got across the line, but just beating Pakuranga, travelling up to Bell Park in East Auckland, but getting the job done by a point. Ponsonby travelled.
Last weekend, I think that was a special celebration for Pakuranga as well, a celebration weekend or club weekend. Or anniversary thing. Sorry, I can't remember exactly what it is, but I just remember seeing that in my Facebook feed. So a big game for Pakuranga, probably in front of a decent crowd there as well. And
Ponsonby, after their victory over Grammar Tech last week, kept the winning feeling going with a good solid 27-7 win over Papatoi and Papatoi. Unfortunately for Waitakere, it's been a tough season for the West Auckland boys. Suburbs getting their biggest win of the season by 74 points to 3. And in the game of the round, College Rifles remain unbeaten. They travelled to University and got the job done 22 points to 15. Now, this is really interesting. College Rifles, one of those teams that have played probably some of the lesser sides. So they were we're probably going to find out what they were all about once we once they started playing some of the heavy hitters. Well, they played one of the heavy hitters on the weekend and got the job done. So unbeaten, Paul, and travelling along nicely.
Yeah, in College Rifles, it's somewhere that I used to go play social touch rugby on a Sunday, and the number of All Blacks and Black Ferns, both 15s and 7s, that they have pictures around top of their bar is very impressive. So they are very, very storied club there with 2 all-weather pitches as part of their ground. 8 games from 8 wins from their 8 games, top of the table on 39 points. So they've also got a game in hand over Ponsonby and University. Ponsonby just 1 point back on 38, but they've played one more game. University, there's a bit of a gap back to them on 32, with Grammar Tech also on 30 and Eden on 27. So a little crowd, the top team, and then a bit of a crowd behind them. Pakuranga on 25, but perhaps starting to slip back a bit there with 4 losses. So their bonus points really keeping them in contention. And then, the other teams, I think, are going to be struggling to make the finals.
I'd have to agree with you, Paul. I'll quickly go through the women's results. Only the one game played on the weekend, and it was College Rifles who travelled to Ardmore Marist, getting the job done by 30 points to 19. I'll have a quick look at the table, Paul. I know.
I think we also had Manuera beat College Rifles 25-27. So a very impressive win for Manuera to go to College Rifles there in that one as well. And also, it looks like they had to play a midweek game as well to try and catch up. So Ardmore Marist playing again on the 5th of June. So that's only 3 days. Both the College Rifles and Ardmore Marist having to turn around and play again 3 days later. Player welfare? Wow. What's going on there?
Wow, that's a tough ask. I think it's got a little bit to do with maybe that Super Rugby game where a lot of the players from a lot of these respective sides were involved in that Super Rugby game. May have just put the program or the schedule behind a bit. So whether that's got a bit to do with that.
That was the Blues versus Chiefs women's game. But so College Rifles beat Ardmore Marist 30-19 in that one.
And just looking at our table there, College Rifles and Ponsonby ruling the roost in on the tables there. If I'm looking at the right table,
I'm struggling here. I thought I'm struggling with the table. Sorry, folks, having issues with the website. So we'll try and rectify that and make sure we know what is going on the women's side of things next week.
No worries. And I'll quickly race through some counties Manukau results because our favourite team is Manurewa, who played at home on the weekend. They played the top of the table, Ardmore Marist, but unfortunately, this is in the McNamara Cup. But Ardmore Marist came away with a 19-15 win. So, yep, bit of a bugger for Manurewa. I know.
We're Manuera's fans here, folks.
Other results: Patamohoi 30, Pukekohe 3, and played also on Saturday were Bombay 38, Papakura 15, Unifero 38, Weymouth 8. As we quickly look at the table, top 3, Ardmore Marist 43, Karaka with 39, Manurewa with 37, and Parapahoe with 35. Round out the McNamara Cup and counties Manukau Rugby. And finally, we head to Northland.
Was there any club rugby this weekend, or did they delay it? The centenary?
No, they didn't. They put all club rugby on hold over the weekend. Obviously, a lot of the focus in and around the Northland Rugby Union celebrations. 101 years Northland Rugby Union centenary. Of course,
before you get into that, we just want to show you that we're just going to say back in the deep south, and Nocturnal Rights points out that Dunedin did 150 years. So your 100 years in Northland boy has been outdone there by Dunedin. We're also Mark Greavy Dunn. Congratulations, sir, on your 150th game down there for Dunedin. Good going.
Wow, that's impressive. Great to see. I know there are Northland is quite a young union in the same and really in the scheme of things, you'll probably find obviously probably one of the more younger unions, North Harbour, Counties Manukau, only formed in probably 1956. So there are some young ones there, but I also know you've got the likes of Manawatu in 15 years will be 150. So it just shows you even the Turbos are quite a old union, but I don't think they were called the Turbos back in the
and Tasman, who are probably only about 15, only about 20 odd years old or 30 years old.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Shouldn't forget them. But listen, it's been a great weekend. It actually started on Friday night with a mix and mingle where basically it was the opportunity for a lot of old friends who played together for Northland or somebody who knew somebody, administrators, all got together on a Friday night. And then we moved into Saturday where we had 3 games on the Saturday, which gave the gave an opportunity for a lot of fans of Northern Rugby to come along and watch some of their more promising players at all levels of the game. When I talk about all levels, we started with the FPC, Farah Palmer Cup trial, between North and South. And that particular game, well, Crystal Murray, she was the star of that show, scoring 4 tries and just displaying all the skills that she's got. And, of course, there were a lot of newcomers who also put their hand up. So a lady that you know too well, you've interviewed her, and another lady you can look back on our archives, Cheryl Smith, a former Blackfern, and her assistant, Susan Dawson. They will have some really pleasant headaches with some of the talent that may have been unearthed or was running around in that particular game. Of course, the North far too strong by 41 points to 12, Paul. So, and I've got to say, good crowd turned out on the day.
Yeah, and look, and Crystal really is trying to up her game this year. Look, she was part of the crowd that headed down to Wellington to play sevens. So yeah, you don't get many props who run out on the sevens pitch. So she clearly is trying to up her game and get into that All Blacks team and making a good shout of it.
Oh well, listen, I was talking to a family friend, and originally she was a winger, and there were a couple of occasions where she was in open space and she put the hammer down, and I thought, wow, she has got a bit of pace. So yeah, great all-round talent. Now the second game of the day was the Johnny Isaacs Memorial Trophy, and that's in the past been played by senior teams and that's basically for supremacy for Māori rugby. So the North is how it works. It's done on, depending what sort of hapu or tribe they're from. The more northern your tribe is, the more chances you're going to play for the North Zone, and the same with the South Zone. It's not like the sub-unions, Paul, where basically from the sub-union they get picked. But this year the Northern Rugby Union had decided to make it an under-21 tournament, and gee, it highlighted some good kids. And the final score was 40-38, with a sideline conversion from my man of the match, a kid by the name of Cyrus Broughton, who he looks like Nani Lamapi. He runs like Nani Lamapi, but he knocks over conversions from the sideline. He's got a high drop kick. He's got an amazing left to right pass. And from what I've got told, he actually started as a halfback, and then he's moved into first 5, and he's moved out to centre. Quite the talent. I was also very impressed with Colt Edwards. Oh, that's a cool name. Colt Edwards, a big, tall, rangy lock from an area that I hail from up in the Bay of Islands. So and I do know of the family as well. So, gee, it just highlighted so much talent in that particular game. And I know, talking to both coaches, and I had a good long chat with both coaches. I've put together an article which I'll put on the Northern Rugby website. That should be posted within the next 24 hours, and you can have a bit of a look through and see what sort of talent they've got on offer. And it just really gives me a lot of hope that if the Northern Rugby Union can identify this talent early, they won't be chasing them around the country at various secondary schools, Paul.
Well, Oxon writes to say thank you for doing the scouting report. He'll be shipped down south soon. Player.
No,
Now, folks, if you want to watch any of these games that Stephen is talking about, they're all available on the Northland Facebook page, and you might recognise the voice that's doing the commentary, because Stephen did 3 games back-to-back commentary on that one. So, congratulations, sir, on a big shift there for the Taniwha up there. And we can tell by the improvement in your studio and camera equipment as to how much money you made from that one.
Yeah, good on you. Not. And the final game was the Northern NPC trial, and the North Zone once again got the job done over the South Zone by 38 points to 19. But the star of the show was Rennie Ranger. A mistake-free Rennie Ranger is a very good player, and he was pretty much mistake-free throughout the game. But I thought there were also very good games from a lad by the name of Tavita Fokafa, a lock very much along the lines of Tupu Vai, was in the Taranaki system in 2019, ex-Rotorua boys. He's probably going to give Northern Forge coach Graham Hughes plenty to think about, but there were several other good performances. But listen, I won't give all that away. There could be scouts around the country listening, Paul. So that.
Well, yes, I'm sure there are. And I was just thinking, I'll quickly look up our interview with Rennie Ranger, and put a link in the live chat, folks, so you can have a have a listen to that as well, because that was a good a good chat with Rennie Ranger. Rennie Ranger doesn't give long form interviews that often, and it was great to have a chat with him in that one. Again, about a year ago now, but I'm sure a lot of it still applies today as well. I think he's a bit surprised yet about what his post rugby career is lined up to be. Dr. Rice says Scott Gregory will be the 12 at Northern for this year. He'll definitely be in the side. I'm not quite sure what number he'll have in his back though, Stephen.
I'm picking 13 Nocturnal, because the 12 who got injured last year was Tamati Tua, and he's just on the road to recovery. I suspect they will use Rennie Ranger and Blake O'Hire as their other midfielders off the bench in 2021. But I'd be remiss of me not to mention the Centennial dinner on the Saturday night, which I attended. Absolutely fantastic. So many Northland legends there. Sid Going, Glenn Taylor, David Howell, just too many names to remember. And of course, a World Women's Rugby Player of the Year, Portia Woodman. I was fortunate enough to get a photograph with both herself and her dad, Kawhena Woodman. Another highlight of the evening was also a All Black capping for Glenn Taylor, who played for the All Blacks back in the 1996, was part of that All Black team that won the series in South Africa, and he had quite a bit of quite a few stories as well, especially some good stories about the late Norm Berryman. We won't go into too much detail about those stories, but listen, it was a great night. Caught up with a lot of faces that I hadn't seen in a very long time, and probably all I can say is I think Northern Rugby is in very good heart.
It sounds like it, which is great to see. Yes, you're smoothing over all of these All Blacks who clearly had too much to drink and filled up their pint glasses with urine, and then try to hand it off to somebody. Those sort of things always happen at rugby drinks, rugby dinners, surely. Yes, very politically correct of you not to give away any of those sort of stories.
Yeah, I basically had to remember how to do a tie up. It had been a while since I actually wore one.
I'm still disappointed in your blazers, sir. Whilst you were well dressed, as I said, I tried to you last week, but this is the kind of blazer that you should be wearing. There, so I'm just waiting for my invite to one of these big dinners so I can get dressed up for the first time in a long time. There we go. But as an Oxford, actually, yes, sharp dressed man, Stephen, looking very good there in his Northland rugby tie as well. Well done, very on brand, which is great to see, with his VIP pass around his neck. Lovely. Great weekend up there in Northern. Congratulations to them on their centenary. Look, it was last year. Unfortunately, due to COVID, they weren't able to celebrate it last year, but could do it this year, which is great.
Paul, listen, I advise anybody, even if you're involved with a rugby club before Nocturnal, you mentioned the club down in Dunedin before. If you get an opportunity, go along to these celebrations, because they only come round once in your lifetime. I don't think you ever get another crack. I'd be impressed if I'm around for the next one, but I don't think so. For some reason, get to them, because they're a lot of fun. And boy, some of the stories you find out about. I'll probably leave you with this story. In 2001, Northland beat Auckland at Eden Park in an incredible comeback of epic proportions. They were playing an Auckland team that had Carlos Spencer, Ali Williams, Doug Howlett, Kevin Mialamu. Seriously, Steve Devine, seriously stacked Auckland team, and Auckland basically were turning down kicks at goal that night, Paul, because they thought, yeah, we've got these guys on the run. We can just turn it on and score at any time that we like. And what they didn't have was a fellow by the name of Rupeni Thauthiaunaumbuka. Who was in his first season with Northland, and in the 39th minute of the game, when his teammate, a fellow by the name of Fera Lasavibao, another Fijian international winger who was playing for Northland at the time, decided to put a cross kick, which I at the time was thinking, what is he doing? Because Doug Howlett would win the race to the ball. Well, Rupeni ran past Doug like Doug was stuck in quicksand, scored the try, and that was probably, for a lot of people, the first introduction to the great Rupeni Thauthiaunaumbuka, and of course James Arledge, who was the first five unwanted by Auckland at the time, unwanted by Wayne Pivac and Grant Fox, who were the Auckland coaches, because they felt they had two very good first fives, Carlos Spencer and Oreni Ie. And to be fair, they did. And of course, the rest is history. Arledge lands the conversion. And under normal circumstances, the Northland team would stay in a hotel for one night and bus back to Whangarei the next morning. The Northland CEO put them up for 2 nights. They drank a keg of beer in a record 25 minutes.
Wow.
It's very, 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 very impressive. So I suggested they probably stayed the extra night to have a sleep. But just talking to Glenn Taylor and, of course, former Northland coach Darren Whitcomb, Darren said, even though I'd made the All Blacks, he said that was the highlight of my life, because the calibre of the Auckland, calibre of the Auckland team at the time. And I must admit, I didn't get home till 10 o'clock the next day either, Paul. We'll leave it at that.
Now, folks, if you want to help me get along to one of these dinners, then I'll be I'll be looking at selling these little stables going forward. So you can look out for an e-commerce store. If you've got any daughters or sons who like playing farm, then we'll be selling those. But also, you can become a supporter of New Zealand Sports Radio by heading over to patreon.com/NZ Sports Radio to become a Patreon and supporter of us, helping us get helping us to improve the tech, particularly for Stephen and his interviews out on the pitch. Because hey, wind is causing us some issues, folks. So we could really be helping with that one there.
It's either that or a sausage sizzle.
Well, yes, well, there you go. Yeah, sausage sizzle for New Zealand Sports Radio. That'd be fantastic. Oh dear, Bunnings. Where's the closest Bunnings? We would like to do a sausage sizzle fundraiser, please. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me this evening, Stephen. It's been an absolute blast as always. And thank you everyone who has joined us in the live chat. Don't forget you can also listen to us as a podcast as well. And have a great week, everybody.